Ready? Okay. I'm Thomas Stotts, and I'm from Oklahoma City. I was born and raised there, lived there all my life. And I started in art very young. Parents noticed I had an aptitude for drawing on just like most artists. You start with pencil and paper. Seems like most of us get our beginning. And so they put me in some oil painting classes when I was about 10, and it was a facility similar to Graceful Arts. It was a Kirkpatrick Center in Oklahoma City, and they had some Saturday art classes in oil painting. So they would take me there once in the around noon or so, and I'd spend a couple hours working on paintings. There was 2 or 3 ladies that were volunteer artists, teachers, and or I don't know, maybe they got paid. They should have been paid if they weren't, because we were a handful. But and they really taught us. I learned a lot of basics. I didn't learn real fine points of art, which really has come through trial and error for me. But they taught me basics about shading, starting with pencil and then black and white paint, and they brought us up slowly. They would have the little blocks like cylinders and cones and spheres, and they would set up a little light, and we kind of had to prove that we could step by step do certain things, and then they finally moved us into full color oil painting. And so I did that in the summer. And it's funny, in school, grade school, Taft Junior High, Northwest class in high school, I really didn't talk about the art. I tended to have classes away from school, and I just did sports in school. And in fact, I've been to Alva before. It was running track for Central State, UCO now. We drove up here for a meet with Northwestern in like 1974. So it's been a few years. And anyway, that's how I got started in it. And then I just kind of decided, gosh, it would be fun. Maybe I could sell some of these, So I started, I joined, I think it was the Oklahoma Art Guild when I got out of college at UCO now. And I remember most art organizations, guilds, they'll have biannual or an annual show, and a member show. And I remember I was 20 years old or 21, entered an oil, and I remember I got third in oils. And there was like Bert Seaburn was in that show, and Cletus Smith, and these were guys, they were a little older than me. I looked up to them. They were already in their careers when I was in college, and I get third place, and I think I won $50, and it seemed like $1 million to me. I was so excited that I even got anything from it, and I think once you kind of taste a little success in anything, you get a little hooked on it. So I just started painting all the time and entering shows and enjoyed it. And for a lot of my life, I worked in the construction business and did some drafting and design with architectural commercial buildings, and did the art on weekends and vacation time. And then in 2009, I decided to retire from that, and we traveled all over the country in my Chevy van, and we just had a ball and did it for about 2 years. And we your adrenaline kind of runs out. We were in our mid-50s, and we had a lot of fun. And then we decided, I don't have many tents and weight bags and things I can haul into these shows anymore. So let's just do local shows, things mainly in Oklahoma, the Oklahoma City Arts Festival, Edmond, anything within Oklahoma just seems to fit us pretty good. And then I started teaching because I didn't want to travel as much, and teach at the Norman Firehouse Art Center and in the Edmond Fine Art Institute. And then just do 2 or 3, 4 shows a year. That's about it. So that's kind of where I'm at right now. I'm enjoying it. I really am having the most fun I've ever had, and I'm excited to be selling art. That's never easy for anybody. I mean, it's just a constant battle to find opportunities and to market your work. And the social media helps nowadays. That's a real good way to get your work out. Galleries, art centers, art shows. And my students, if any of them, I teach mainly retired and adult students. Some, not all of them are retired, but if any of them want to sell, I always tell them to start. A good way is to join an art club, kind of do some small show. You don't have a big financial investment, in like tents and all that stuff. And so that's kind of how I got started. So I enjoy the passing along the painting knowledge in my classes, and I really kind of like to pass along marketing knowledge, because a lot of people don't really know what to do, and I've just about done it all. And as far as marketing, and I've had great success, and I've had a big zero at times. I mean, it's just a constant. You just never know. It's it's like fishing. You don't know if you're going to land the big one or you're going to do nothing with that outing. And but it's fun. I love the marketing as much as the painting. And I do right now. I do mainly acrylic on canvas. And primarily a landscape artist, but have begun just really to, I just wanted some new work to do. I was, as artists get older, they want to try some new things sometimes, just to refreshen their own minds. And so I started doing some abstract painting, and then also some pure wildlife rather than just wildlife and landscape, and I've really enjoyed it. It's been good for me. It opened new markets too as far as sales, I really noticed. It felt like my marketing with the landscapes was getting a little stale. It's like I'd kind of saturated my area, and so I felt a freshening was needed, and that's why I got into the abstract and the wildlife. And I've also was a watercolorist quite a bit in the 80s. I did a lot of watercolor. I really looked up to Cletus Smith. He was one of my favorite local artists, and he inspired me a lot. He was just a great watercolorist. He does oils too, But and I also, when I was young and throughout my life, I always looked up to I'm blanking out, the well-known, famous artist Andrew Wyeth, yeah, and famous watercolor artist, and was from Maine and Pennsylvania, those areas. He passed away probably 10 years ago. He lived into his 90s, and loved his watercolors, especially since I was more a watercolorist back then, and back in the 80s. And so a lot of his work is kind of monochromatic. It's not highly colorful. It's somewhat minimal. It really goes to the heart of things. He did a lot of old historical farmhouses up from Pennsylvania and some of the people up there. And I love that. I love most of my career, I just would go around all over central Oklahoma and take 35 millimeter shots of the old farmhouses. And there was, in the 80s, there was just so many of them still left. They're just all over the place, and they were abandoned. And I had a Camaro. I'd pull off in a bar ditch and never got stuck. Of course, I was in my 20s, so you never think about having a problem when you're in your 20s. You're bulletproof. I'd jump over the barbed wire fences and run up to the house and look through it, take pictures, and there would still be artifacts inside that they weren't even stripped at that time. There were still things in the house, and I wouldn't bother anything though. It was kind of an honor thing. I didn't want to take anything, but I would take pictures, and I would do the mostly watercolors through those years, and then really began to move away from watercolor. In 1991, I went to Santa Fe and got invited into a gallery there in Santa Fe, and they wanted mainly works on canvas, and it's kind of a financial thing. People tend to value things on canvas more. Generally, it's somewhat of a misconception. I think watercolor, I think there's a little misconception that somehow it's not archival, that it's not as long lasting as the pigments in it, like as oil or acrylic, and it is. So it's archival. It lasts a long time, but that's what the galleries there wanted, and they could get more for them. It was really more commercial oriented, but I wanted to sell work, so I began to, and I'd always done some work on canvas, but I began to shift more of my focus toward acrylic and oil on canvas, and a lot of it was because I wanted to get in and stay in some galleries in Santa Fe and Albuquerque and Taos, and did from 91 until COVID. And everyone I had just kind of went under during those years, or they downsized so much that they weren't showing too many people. And so that was 2020, 2021, and I just, after marketing for so many years, taking work out there, I kind of thought, I don't want to go out and start again. So I just begin to focus more in Oklahoma City and Oklahoma. And by then, social media, people will buy over social media now, even expensive items that used to they wouldn't. They wouldn't trust. But the art world, there's a lot of high-priced original art that is sold through social media now. It's surprising to me, really, but it's become not unusual. And so, I mentioned the dollars. You kind of have to. I mean, art, if you want to continue to do it, you have to think about the financial part of it. You've got to remain solvent personally. And so I do. I take into consideration what I love to do, and I take into consideration what I think is more marketable as well. And I freely admit that I don't think the two conflict. I think if you want to succeed, you want to succeed. You want to be able to make a living doing it, and and that's not easy. And so you have to think about, okay, what do I love to do? I can do a lot of things I love, but then what can I market the best? So so right now, mainly acrylic on canvas, and I have started teaching watercolor again. After COVID, some of the schools that I was teaching, art centers, even when they opened up, people were a little afraid, to mix again. At that time, a couple of years ago, we were still a little scared about it. It's I think it's become old hat. I don't think people worry about it much anymore. But we had a meeting in Norman, and the director said, "What do you think you can do to get the students coming back out again? I mean, it's opened back up. They were closed for a while." And I said, "Well, I used to do watercolor for many years." I said, "I hadn't offered classes, so there may be a demand for watercolor painting." I mainly taught acrylic, and so we offered it, and there was a demand. And then I started doing some in Edmond Fine Art Institute also. So that got me back into watercolor in my teaching, and I had to pull out I hadn't used my watercolor in probably 15 years. I had to pull my little tackle box out, find out are my paints still good? Some of them were, some of them weren't, and scramble around and get some paper. And then I did a few watercolors just to kind of knock the rust off, because I hadn't done any in at least a decade. And so I'm doing that, teaching watercolor and acrylic now. And I try to keep a balance, not too much teaching where I can't market my work, and not so much market and traveling where I can't teach. So that's a pretty good balance for me. That's right now I'm in a pretty good place. I'm enjoying it, and it's not wearing myself out too much. But art is it will tax you. I mean, you there's a lot of activity in it. Seems like I never go anywhere that I'm not carrying things. A canvas and a paper and a portfolio, and so that keeps me busy. I enjoy it, and I think the thing about art, the older you get, it seems like your peak years as an artist continue to build as you get older, rather than peak and then fall. As you retire or whatever, you tend to not want to retire as an artist. So I think that's something about being an artist that I enjoy. It's like I'm 67 now, and I feel like every day, every year, it's just getting better. It's like things are just rising instead of receding, and that keeps me excited about getting up and painting. And I try to relay that to students too. And it doesn't matter if you're wanting to market it, but just to accomplish, to paint, is its own reward, and you don't have to be into the selling and the marketing of it to have a lot of fun with it. So that's just something I like to do. It was always kind of a goal I had, and so that's kind of where I'm at. Joe invited me, Joe Decker, to show up here, and I said, "Yeah, that sounds fun." My wife and I like to take day trips. We used to drive out to Santa Fe a lot, and COVID changed a lot of things, and travel for a while was shut down, and so we decided, let's just do short trips where we don't even spend the night. Let's drive to the Wichita Mountains, or let's go here or there, and then have some fun, and then come home. And where places that weren't shut down. And so I thought, well, that's right in our range that we like to go. And so I really did it, accepted. I mean, I was happy to do it, but my wife Cindy loves to get out on the road. So I thought, well, that's right up our alley. And we always look for the best cheeseburger in town. Every town has one of those, and we actually stopped on the way over here tonight in Medford, and there was a Smirks. Yeah, it was a good cheeseburger. So we stopped there and ate, and come on out here tonight. And So, yeah, we love finding these Oklahoma towns, and there's always those places. There's always people that love to talk about their town and the history of it, and we enjoy hearing it. And so that's what we're doing right now. Kind of keep this up and see what other opportunities arise. Just always have my antenna out to see, with art you kind of have to try a lot of different things, It's not just one thing like, oh, well, I'm in a gallery. And so, you got to be in maybe a gallery or maybe do an outdoor show, and then maybe do some social media marketing, or, just it takes all that really to do it as somewhat of a living. I don't think it's always been kind of, well, it's a third of my living. I don't think I could ever, maybe someday, sole living, but it's fun to pursue it and just see what you can do. It's just a challenge. So thank you.